What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? We're off to the congressional races. Today we've got Lindsey Ferreira, a longtime friend of mine on TikTok, who is now running for Congress. She made my wife some lovely jewelry for her wedding, which was amazing. And yeah, we wanted to kind of support her primary run for Congress here. So Lindsay, just tell the listeners who you are, uh, how you got here, what you're doing. Just give us the Lindsay story.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me on here. And so, yeah, my name is Lindsay Ferreira, and I am running for Congress in Ohio's first congressional district to primary Democratic incumbent Greg Landsman. Um, I'm a disabled Navy veteran, a Muslim woman, an activist, a community volunteer, a parent, and who's running a 100% grassroots, people powered campaign to take Congress back, to take Congress and to take Washington back in general for the people. Government is supposed to be for the people, by the people, not for the billionaires, by the billionaires, and the Washington elite, so they can hoard everything, have their eyes wide shut parties, and do whatever they want. It is supposed to be for the people. And so I'm not going to change the wheel. I'm going in to break the wheel.
Well, I appreciate the elevator pitch right off the bat, but Lindsay, who is Lindsay? I want to know,
Who's
like leave us the backstory. I know you struggle obviously with disability. You were in the Navy. Like we want to know who Lindsay is, and then we'll get
So
to the congressional part.
I describe myself as a neurospicy, ultra sarcastic, you know, ultra sarcastic asshole with a foul mouth, and foul mouth, realistic, extreme empath, who has a tiny obsession with animals. If it's a floof, I want it. I was in the Navy. I served in the Navy from 2013 until 2017 when I got medically retired. I got sick in the Navy,
What'd you
and
do in the Navy?
I did interior communications electronics. So how I explain it to people is if it went ring ring woo woo or navigated, it was my equipment. So on my ship alone, my first command was the USS Harper's Ferry, which is a relatively smaller ship. I was like, we had over 10,000 pieces of equipment that we were responsible for. But my explicit training and my expertise is in shipboard telecommunication systems, shipboard navigation systems, and shipboard flight navigation systems. And navigation systems are just my baby, that and telecommunication systems, because a lot of it relies on physics, and I freaking love physics. So, but yeah, I was stationed in California. Absolutely loved California. We made it home. Um, we had planned on, just staying there forever. But like I said, I got sick and medically retired. And, and as my condition was progressing, we knew that we were going to need a little bit more help. We kind of
Do you,
realized that
do you
when
mind sharing what? And obviously you don't
yeah,
have to
yeah,
at all,
no.
but
So I have classic type Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Addison's disease, and a whole bunch of comorbidities that are under that umbrella. I also have hemiplegic migraines. I have migraines. It's a migraine is a neurobiologic disorder, and hemiplegic migraines are a very rare type of migraine that causes stroke symptoms because it actually it causes the vessels in the brain to spasm shut as opposed to a stroke. A stroke is caused to an occlusion in the blood vessel. And with a hemiplegic migraine, what happens is the vessel actually spasms shut, causing blood to to not get through to that area. So they so it causes the same symptoms as a stroke. With a hemiplegic migraine, the spasm can last from a few minutes to hours. And obviously, when blood flow is cut off to the brain, any part of the brain, every minute counts.
Yeah.
So it's they're not fun. They're not fun at all.
Doesn't sound like it. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing. So anyway, so you went from California, then back to Ohio.
Yeah, back to I said yeah, we went back to Ohio because my long story short, my husband it broke his ankle roller skating. He decided that after not roller skating for 20 years, he was going to be a goddamn dancing queen, and had a really bad trimal fracture that left him in a hospital bed for a month. So I was taking care of him for a month. I've got a medical background also. So we saved a lot of money with me being able to take care of him and not have nursing come in every day. But we realized, we were going to need the extra help, and we were like, oh, well, family and friends will help us, so we'll just move back to Ohio. And yeah, that was a futile mistake, but that is
But hey,
what it
now
is.
at least you're in Ohio. So.
Now at least I'm in Ohio,
Lose.
and this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm obviously supposed to be here, exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm doing. So, I trust the plan of the universe, and
All right.
but outside of that, I'm involved in the community. I'm involved in different organizations within the community that help immigrants, that do like I'm part of 5051 Cincinnati. I foster volunteer for the SPCA. I specialize in neonatal kittens and puppies, so I solely do kittens and puppies under 8 weeks old, raise them and send them off. I've got a BA in interdisciplinary studies that I don't really talk about it that much because I'm kind of embarrassed by it. But I do, and for about 6 years on my own, I've been studying astrophysics and quantum mechanics, and I'm currently writing 2 academic papers on gravitational waves and gravity as it relates to possibly. So basically, I've theorized that gravity can be seen as a dimension just like time and space.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the past, I remember, and you and I have nerded out a tad over some of the science stuff. If you don't follow my regular content, I guess I don't know why you guys are here, but I'm glad that you are. But I do a science video every Friday, and Lindsay and I have definitely connected over that, I think probably more than anything else.
It
So
sounds
that's
like
really
you're
interesting. Yeah, go
you're
ahead.
writing the dissertation or the paper on why Interstellar was relevant and interesting.
Actually, Interstellar is my favorite movie. My
It's a good one.
absolutely favorite movie for a number of reasons. Number one, it's actually scientifically accurate. I could talk about this forever. Kip Thorne actually helped produce it, and was a, oh, what's the word? Sorry, aphasia. Basically, he helped give guidance on it, and he said that the only way, like he told the director Chris, the only way that he would come and be a part of the movie is if it was scientifically accurate. And Kip Thorne is my, like, if I got to meet Kip Thorne, I would melt into an absolute puddle.
That's so cool. No, I really enjoyed Interstellar, and yeah, I geek out about that stuff too, because it's just, I understand it enough to like get the basic concept of it, but not nearly enough to understand how any of it works, so it still just blows my mind. And it was actually the way that time moves in relationship to speed was how I started doing the science series. It was either
Yeah.
that or that we don't exactly understand specifically why planes fly. But it was those two facts that I wanted to like start the science series on, and then got trapped into doing this every week forever. Um, but no, that's awesome. I guess we should probably get into why you decided to start running, because you're running in the primary currently, and you're running against an incumbent who is brand new. I mean, he just got in 2020. I mean, he just won in the last election here. So brand new incumbent. Who held the seat before him?
Steve Shabbat.
Was he?
Steve Shabbat is a MAGA Republican.
Okay, so we flipped the seat.
Yeah.
So we flipped the seat, and a first-time incumbent, and you're choosing to primary him, which could be facing some criticism for multiple reasons. So what's your motivation there? Because I mean, I kind of know what it is behind the scenes, but I'll let you describe it in your own words, and then we'll talk about it.
So we basically went from a Republican to Republican light. My opponent, Greg Landsman, served in Cincinnati City Council for several years, and there was controversy with him in Cincinnati City Council. He was actually part of what was called the Gang of Five. These 5 city council members texting behind the scenes about government-related business, and that is illegal to do because they have to talk about that in the public forum because the public has a right to know what is going on. So since getting into Congress in 2023, so let me step back for a second. So he is one of the most Republican aligned Democrats in Congress. He consistently votes along with Republican policy and Republican legislation, including the Lincoln-Riley Act, the voting to support ICE just recently, and expressing gratitude to ICE.
We know all about that.
Yeah. Giving, every time a vote comes up to give Israel money or military aid, he is right on it. He is bankrolled by AIPAC, and he is a super he's a Netanyahu lover. I'm trying to find the best way to say it, being professional.
No. And this is why I said I knew where your motivation was going to be, simply because I looked him up on Open Secrets and saw, like, right at the top, it's like pro-Israel lobby is his biggest donor by a lot.
Yeah. Well, and he even got he got $40,000 from a property company in Cincinnati, from a big property company in Cincinnati that owns a lot of the pay garages in downtown Cincinnati and a lot of rental properties. And so obviously there's issues with the rising cost of rent and landlords trying to hoard money, constantly raise tenants' rent. It was just very light bulb going off, like, why would this company give him $40,000? And that is what we are currently working to investigate. We assume it is under the table pay to play for permits and permits and access. So, but I decided to run. I decided to run because I was at a point where I was constantly angry. I was incredibly fearful. I'm a disabled veteran that is on that receives veteran disability, and that it's barely enough to cover anything. Like it's bad, and without it, I'd probably be homeless with it. I'd definitely be homeless without it. And so it was just, having that fear loom over me of losing the veterans benefits, Trump being Trump, and him just not doing, everything, the genocide in Gaza, and him not doing anything about it. And if you were to call his office, which I did about at least once a week, I think sometimes I did twice a week, you would just get these copy and paste answers. And for me, I had a choice. I was like, I can either sit and go on social media and bitch and complain about this and just do that, or I can take action. So I took that fear, I took that rage, I took that insecurity, and I turned it into action and said, I'm just going to go ahead and run against this guy, because we have got to get the establishment Democrats out of office. And people want him out of office. They desperately want him out of office. So I was like, nobody else is doing it. I'll step up to the plate. I'll step up to the plate and take the mission on.
I guess this is where the critical prospect of it comes from. Is obviously you have policies we align with, which are very progressive, but you live in a state that gave us J.D. Vance and Jim Jordan. It's not exactly a bastion of leftists out there. And so this is a seat that has moved slightly to the left. Republican light is better than MAGA Republican, right? It's people at least tolerating the D next to the name on the ballot in a place where they weren't previously. And so do you feel that rocking that boat, there could be consequences to that could shift this district back to the right again when it's slowly moving to the left?
Because it's a primary, I don't. And I say that because, it's if in the event I don't win against him in the primary, he pretty much takes the election, because Ohio District 1, which covers Hamilton County and Warren County, is pretty blue. Mm-hmm. So, it would just remain status quo.
So did he win because your district got redistricted then? Is that what happened? Is that why it shifted blue?
Yeah. I mean, Cincinnati has always been a blue dot in, a very Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, and Toledo are like blue dots in red, in a red state now because it's so gerrymandered. Ohio was actually pretty purple, but because it's so gerrymandered. So what was I saying?
I was just asking if you got racist. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you have a good point in that, worrying about rocking the boat, especially against establishment Democrats, is not the first concern. I would agree that the things that he's promoting, or not actively trying to fight against, speak more to what he's about. Just being against the big beautiful bill, and just being against people being overcharged by healthcare isn't enough for people these days. You need to be for more things. And I mean, if you could win the primary, and it sounds like in a fairly blue district, then that just shows the amount of support you have. And I would think that that would lend you very well to an open, election.
And I've had the honor and the opportunity to talk to hundreds and hundreds of people, and Cincinnati is incredibly, especially with Gen Z now, Cincinnati is very much evolving to, we need change, and we can't keep on going with the status quo. It's not working. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting the same results. And people all over the country in the Democratic Party are waking up to that. We cannot keep on doing the same thing. Something has to change. But nothing will change unless if somebody is willing to go and fight for that change. Unless if you have people that are willing to run for office, willing to primary establishment Democrats in office. Yes, it is scary. Yes, the DNC may hate you, but fuck the DNC. You have to be willing to face that fear and go forward, knowing what the big picture is, knowing what the mission is.
Absolutely. And I just want to be clear. I'm for, I guess, lack of a better term, playing devil's advocate on, I suppose, criticisms that I likely see coming up, especially if you get competitive in the primary. And we can say fuck the DNC all we want, but in districts like that, without some sort of party backing, it makes it a lot harder to win them. So I was just curious, and I don't know how if the district was redistricted or not, and if that's why it shifted blue, and if it's a safer blue district than it was last election, or if it shifted blue because people were just fed up with the last congressman, and how that happened. So.
Well, it's definitely a bit of both, and we also have Democratic Socialists of America in Cincinnati now. We just got the Working Families Party. We've got people working behind the scenes to within the Hamilton Democratic Party and ODP, working to create a progressive caucus because they understand what is at stake.
So I guess with that, obviously, you're running on a more progressive platform, and I want to hear, your specifics. What are the top issues that you're running on that you find important that you think are going to resonate here?
Yes, so absolutely. So, in a short nutshell, I'm running on lowering the cost of housing, lowering the cost of healthcare and dental care, securing and expanding the VA, and ensuring benefits and healthcare for veterans. Obviously, protecting women's right to choose, LGBTQ and trans rights, fighting for civil rights and civil liberties. Protecting the Black and brown communities is something that is incredibly important to me. Fighting, going against ICE, fighting the Trump administration, and just fighting the establishment in general. And that does include the establishment Democrats. So, and then of course, outside of that, I have a lot of other issues that I'm also fighting for, but those are, I was told I was only allowed to pick a few to put on the campaign website. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do these, but we list them all, and I list them all in detail, specific plans to tackle those issues, tackle housing, tackle healthcare, work to, tackle Social Security, save Social Security, save Medicare, Medicaid, and expand that. SNAP benefits, public education is also a huge one for me as well. So, because it's my personal core belief is human beings just for existing, because none of us asked to be born. So just for existing, it is a housing, food, clothing, transportation, education. Did I say healthcare? Healthcare and access to communications because of the world that we live in now. Those are inalienable human rights. Just for coming out of the uterus, you should be able to have those things.
I don't think we could agree more.
Definitely, yeah, definitely right in line with just the general progressive caucus things, but certainly with a little bit more flair, certainly with VA focus and veteran focus, which obviously makes sense. You mentioned there's on there, stuff you sent over, there's 4 big topics that you wanted to focus on today, on top of, obviously we can discuss. I mean, we would love to have the policy discussions, but I think, helping you out and getting your message out there on some of the big topics that Greg is really failing on as a congressperson is probably slightly more important to our viewers and hopefully some of your constituents that may be watching this someday. So what's the first big one that you want to focus on?
For the policy, you know what, hold on one second. So for the policy, so the first big one is Gaza. I am unequivocally, absolutely unequivocally, vehemently opposed to the genocide that is occurring in Gaza. And make no mistake, it is a genocide. There's no mashing words. There's no, wrapping it in a bow. It is a genocide. And the U.S. is complicit in it. The U.S. is complicit in it. And I am absolutely opposed to it. I am absolutely opposed to all of the people in Congress, both on the left and the right, who take AIPAC money, who make excuses for what is going on, who say, oh, well, Israel has a right to defend itself. Bullshit. You can't defend yourself. You don't get to claim defense against a territory you already systematically occupy. You don't get to claim that.
Absolutely. And for our viewers and people who may or may not be following exactly what's happening as closely, and all they hear is people on the left saying it's a genocide, I guess I've sort of been trying to keep up, but can you help kind of paint a picture of how exactly it's being perpetrated and some of the specific ways that Israel is enacting?
So as far as what Israel is doing and what Israel is saying, excuse me. Right. So Israel is saying, of course, their big excuse and Netanyahu's big excuse. And what people need to understand about Netanyahu is he is the Israeli version of Trump and probably worse. He was arrested on corruption charges, and he still managed, like Trump, to go back in and be prime minister. He is he's not even from Israel. He's from Pennsylvania. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's not from. So basically, how Israeli citizenship works is if you are born into the Jewish faith, you automatically qualify for Israeli citizenship.
Yeah, I know that.
So you just have to serve in either the Israeli military or the U.S. military, or do some kind of military service.
Telling that as you can serve in the U.S. military and somehow become a citizen of Israel. That's wild.
Yeah. it's but Netanyahu is an incredibly self-serving, corrupt, very
I
ultra
I just
conservative
want
person.
to, for the sake of clarity and being
Mhm.
factually accurate, I just want to say that I looked it up and it says Netanyahu was born in 1949 in Tel Aviv.
Oh, he was. Maybe he was raised in.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
says, yeah, he studied law in London. Though all his grandparents were born in the Russian Empire, now Belarus. His mother's parents immigrated to Minneapolis in the United States.
Not
Uh,
Minneapolis,
yeah, I know. Why did we have to have the tie to him over here?
right?
So between 56 and 58, and again in 63 to 67, um, his family lived in Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania. So yeah, he did spend some time there, but he is in fact a Israel
Native
native. Not that I'm
Israeli.
sticking up for Netanyahu or anything in any way, shape, or form. I like to be factually accurate.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, thank you for correcting that. I definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So because I knew I wasn't. I was like, well, but yeah. So Netanyahu is it has been an incredibly corrupt um individual who has made quotes, you know, of um who has made quotes to his essentially paraphrasing. I think he sees the US the way that Russia does, is the useful idiot. And so getting whatever he can from the US for ultimate control of Palestine, or what they call Israel, is what he wants. And obviously he is incredibly uh Islamophobic to anything, to anyone brown. Um, he had, so there's that, and they use this talking point of, well, Israel has the right to defend itself. Well, you can't defend yourself in a territory you
Yeah, yeah.
already occupy.
Mm-hmm.
You systematically invaded
Mm-hmm.
it, and
I think
occupied.
the point we were talking about before though, 'cause we kind of covered that, was the fact that Israel is currently committing a genocide. And Taylor and I have
Yes.
gone over kind of the history of Israel, which people I think often forget that Israel is a country that is younger than my grandmother. It was formed in 1947 after the Second World War,
Yes.
and it's not the biblical Israel that people kind of equate it with. And Israel has done a really good job of uh, tying themselves to the biblical image of Israel and the Jewish people, and not the fact that it is a contemporary government and state. And that's really kind of been their superpower, has been any criticism of Israel as a government and a state. They can pass off as anti-Semitic and really undermine any legitimate criticism. And those are two different things. You can be critical of a government and a state without being critical of the Jewish people. That should seem obvious to everybody,
Exactly.
but it's not. And so yeah, so they've been occupying a territory that has been disputed for getting close to a century now, or over a century now, if we really get back to kind of pre-World War I. And this is sort of what Israel has been trying to do since the 1940s. What they're doing currently, and it's gotten really disgusting. But how would you describe it specifically as a genocide? What are they doing that constitutes genocide versus, say, occupation or invasion? I think is where
They
Taylor's asking.
have systematically decimated and they have systematically decimated and exterminated um, we don't know what the exact numbers are, but they are into the hundreds of thousands. Women, children, babies, men, people who have nothing to do with the resistance group Hamas. They have closed the borders to not allow any aid to come in to Gaza. The borders were closed for 2 months. Nothing could come in to Gaza. No hospital supplies, no food. Now they allow little drops of food and supplies by a U.S. contracted company. They are now allowing the UN to continue as well. There was an issue, so they weren't allowing the UN. They stopped them from doing it for a while. And this U.S. contracted company was sending in very, very little supplies. You have to understand, Gaza is on what's called a level 5 famine, also known as an IDC or an IPC 5 famine. And what that is it is the point of no return. The effects are irreversible. The effects from the malnutrition that people experience are irreversible. More death on a catastrophic scale is absolutely inevitable. They have.
I do think that that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize too, because we've gotten a lot of headlines about the atrocities they're committing on a war front, bombing schools and hospitals, and places where they've designated as refugee camps that are supposed to be safe. But they're really systematically committing genocide as in the form of a forced famine, genocide by starvation, and that I think is really the thing that hasn't been highlighted quite well enough. So I appreciate
It's their
pointing that
final
out.
solution. It's the equivalent of the final solution.
Yeah.
So because they have been systematically kidnapping, killing, torturing Palestinian people from Gaza long before October 7th. But after that, it has been at a ramped up scale. They have killed, shot at, blown up aid trucks, doctors, humanitarian workers, a doctor at one of the last hospitals in Gaza that they blew up and went to occupy and told everybody they had to leave. I am so incredibly sorry for not remembering this doctor's name. I know his face. I see his face in my head. But this doctor said, I am not leaving my patients. End of discussion. And they went and took him. They kidnapped him. They have no idea where he is. We know that he has been systematically tortured, which is what happens to all Palestinian captives.
Yeah.
They are beaten, they are starved, they are tortured. Women are raped. We've got IDF soldiers. We have it on record of IDF soldiers making jokes about if they can shoot this person or that person, and they do it for no reason at all, just because to them it is a game.
Yeah, the idea of social media is insane. How much is out there about their lack of concern, and just it's disgusting what they just joke about and what they consider to be normal discussion and whatnot.
It's I was sponsoring a couple of families in Gaza to try to help them raise money. To try to help them raise money to get out of Gaza. Unfortunately, we lost communication. I I don't even want to think about if they're alive or not. And these people spend every waking second in terror.
Yeah.
Bombs going off around them, images that you can't, like, and I watch this stuff every day, and I follow it. Journalists from Gaza. I see the pictures, I see the videos, and you can't, like, there's stuff that you can't get out of your head. Like, it is permanently there. And these people are going through absolute, even if they aren't physically being tortured, what they are going through is absolute torture. You've got people with disabilities. There's a couple of people from Gaza who have Down syndrome that I have followed from the beginning, that they don't understand what's going on. They can't conceptualize it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
All they know is all this.
You
Yeah.
can't really. I mean, even not having Down syndrome, like, it's hard to conceptualize what's going on. It's something that seems so far outside the realm of what should be happening in the 21st century. I mean, especially considering how traumatic we all view the Holocaust and the Second World War and the last, major genocide that was kind of front and center in the media. And just to see this happening again all over, it's I just, yeah, it's a hard thing to conceptualize and understand, and then it is absolutely a frustrating thing that our government, politicians on both sides of the aisle, continue to turn a blind eye to and actively support, because that's where a big portion of their money comes from. And the fact that, we're defying the international community that is condemning this, that has considered Netanyahu a war criminal. There's a warrant out for his arrest by the International Criminal Court for his crimes against humanity, and we are actively aiding him in getting around that and continuing to do what he does. So that is,
and for that, the U.S. needs to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
The U.S. needs to be held internationally accountable for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Anybody here in the U.S. that actively participated needs to be held accountable. And I stand 10 toes down on that.
That's a lovely thought. That's not going to happen, because if we're going to start holding ourselves accountable for stuff, we got a lot of history to go back on. We got a lot of stuff to hold ourselves accountable. Start working on that. I think, honestly, the best we can hope for is doing better. As much as I'd love to see accountability here on this, right now I think the focus is just on stopping the active harm going forward, which I think kind of brings me to my next point. Is you have a lot of policy that you want to focus on if you were to get elected, and we all have idealistic policy, but there are 435 members of Congress, 100 senators, a president, a Supreme Court. And unfortunately, idealism and realism are two different things. So what legislation would be your primary focus if you did, in fact, get to Congress, that you think you could actually make measurable change on in the near term?
So right now I actually have two bills that I'm currently writing that when I get into Congress, I can present as legislation. One is for housing, and one is for housing and one is for healthcare. So the housing bill, what the housing bill would ultimately do is lower the cost of housing twofold, through single family houses and rental properties. And what it would do is, number one, it would basically strip corporations, private equity, hedge funds, from being able to purchase single family houses. it would strip them of that. And the ones that they do have that are not sold, they would have to put those on, they would have to put those immediately on the market below market rate, or be fined for every day they don't put that house on the market. And not just be fined a little, but they gonna feel it. We gonna make them cry. They're gonna have to sell a boat or two. And also, it would limit the amount of rental property. So like the apartment buildings that developers, venture capitalists, and private equity firms could own, and that would be based on city population. So because we need to be able to shore up single family housing for availability for people to be able to purchase. I have eligibility to use the VA home loan, and I can't even use it because I can't afford to buy a house, because number one, because of the price of housing, and number two, because of the interest rates. And so, we definitely need to work with the Fed to get the price, to get the interest rates down, especially for first-time home buyers.
So just to offer some input, because I've thought a lot about this, and I think I think some approaches to maybe consider would be government-backed guaranteed interest rates at some sort of affordable 5% and under, for first-time home buyers only. You get that credit once in your life, guaranteed. Your first-time home buying, you get this guaranteed 30-year mortgage at this interest rate, with maybe some guaranteed at only 5% down or something along those lines, versus the 20 that has kind of become the norm. Something along those lines. I think one way to kind of address the amount of properties that corporations are using is just imposing a very high tax on properties over X amount that they have in their position, especially with multifamily housing units like apartments and things like that, or single family homes. I do think it's probably hard to get people to buy, get legislators and certain people to buy into forcing people to sell property they already own. That's a tough thing for the government to do. Taking things away from people they already have is usually just a tough sell, but making it expensive enough where it's not practical for them to keep them is usually a little bit easier in that way. Just my opinion, but that's a thought I have, and I definitely agree with the first-time home buyers, especially with interest rates.
Like maybe capping number of homes you can own. Like I know there's a number of companies that own like 100 plus single family homes. But limiting that to like 10 or 15 and then fining everyone at a progressive rate or something like that. Because I know there's plenty of mom and pop investors that own apartment complexes and multiple single family homes. And like obviously housing as a commodity is a whole different discussion, but like there's plenty of people that I feel like renovate homes, rebuild them back up, and then bring those houses back into the market. And then they that's their job. And like that feels like a reasonable thing to do if you're not owning 100 homes, if you're owning like 10 homes, and then you after at a certain point you're like, okay, well, I'm going to sell this one, I'll buy another one, because it doesn't make sense for me to hold on to more than X number. Like that seems like a pretty good policy, but just my 2 cents.
Yeah. So, well, and the people like the mom and pops that like renovate houses, they sell them right away. Like they buy them, they renovate them, they sell them for the most part. It's the hoarding of single family houses in this country. We have enough houses in this country to house to house everybody in this country.
Right.
And
Sure.
and we could absolutely easily, put money into the houses that need to be rehabbed. We could easily put money into that.
I agree to an extent on that. I do think that we as a government could very easily start funding rehabbing housing and new construction where it's needed. I think that there's no question there. There's a ton of incentive programs we can go around doing that. We've done that in the past as a government. It's kind of what led to the boom of suburbia,
Mm-hmm.
sort of unfortunately, but that's where the dream
Yeah.
of the single family home came from, was heavy government investment in single family home infrastructure after the Second World War. But like the we have enough housing to house everybody argument is true in physical numbers, but unfortunately a lot of that housing is in places that currently don't really support, like, don't have the population there. It's uh housing where it's needed is not abundant, unfortunately, at the moment, because population centers have changed. Obviously, over time, Detroit, for example, is not supporting the same population it did during its
Yeah.
heyday. So a lot of those empty houses and dilapidated houses are sitting there empty because the houses are next to worthless, because there's no jobs there for people to have, there's no support there for people to have to fill those homes, and so that's something I think we need to just keep in perspective when we talk about the number of housing and how we address this issue.
Well, and that speaks more to a coming up with a holistic
Mm-hmm.
solution of, bringing more jobs to those areas, building and lifting those communities up to be, self-sustainable, if you will, communities. And I think that could absolutely be done. We just have to, people in Congress, the lawmakers have to put their own self-interest aside. Like, they have to put their own self-interest aside. They have to quit, they have to quit simping for the lobbyists and the corporations that bankroll them, and, super PACs that bankroll them. So, and I know that sounds fanciful, but that was the original point. That was the whole reason of developing government in the first place.
No,
And
it's something that we need to do. Unfortunately, we're never going to get a governmental majority that does that of their own free will. As long as there's money
no,
in politics, there's going to be people who prioritize the people
no.
funding their campaigns and giving them fancy
and
gifts.
and hope, and we definitely need to take money out of politics, and that's obviously another thing that I'm fighting for. But on the second tier, when it comes to renting, is we need to basically have a federal rent control. Rents in this country have absolutely skyrocketed. In Ohio alone, in Cincinnati, rents have gone up uh, more than, I think it's 150%. Don't quote me on that number, but it is absolutely skyrocketed. And I will, like, my personal example, when not last year, like, not the lease for this year, but the previous lease, our rent went up $200 a month. And they tried to claim, well, that's what the market rate is. Not for my place, it isn't. Not when it hasn't been updated. Not when my refrigerator doesn't even have an ice machine. Not when I've got, not when I've got air coming through a door. Am I, causing my electricity to go sky high? So for the, as far as renting goes, because we have got a lot more people renting now, because people, millennials and Gen Z can't afford to buy houses, is we need to do a federal rent control and basically go along the guidelines of what Section 8 does, and that is capping rent at 30% of your adjusted gross income. And for people that are going to say, well, when you go to put in an application to rent a place, they're going to ask you what your income is. Loophole. It is going to be illegal to ask what your income is until you get approved for that rental place to keep income discrimination from happening. Additionally, rental renewal, so if you extend your lease for another year, cannot go up any more than 5%.
Okay, so I guess I'm not entirely following on that. So you're saying a person could apply for any rental property, and then they're not required to disclose their income, and then after they're approved, they disclose their income, and you can only charge them 30% of what their income is.
Yes.
So anybody, you could go apply for a penthouse condo, for example, and get approved, and then be making minimum wage and have a $500 a month penthouse I just don't see how that's going to function.
Yeah, and I understand, and I've thought about those. I've thought about those scenarios too, and I've thought about those scenarios too, and if people absolutely want to, again, it's nuanced, and it has to be, this is where I'm going to sit down with HUD, with realtors, with landlords,
Okay.
and really talk to them before. But if you want to rent a penthouse, that would be separate. Like, okay, you can rent it, but you're going to be paying for it. Like, luxury stuff.
I mean,
we just want to get you housed.
Luxury. It's not just luxury. I
mean,
it's just it's market driven. Obviously, if you have property taxes and insurance in places change, and that still needs to be covered by the renter. You can't have a landlord paying for somebody else to live there. And that's basically what you'd be setting up with this is if somebody's income is not, and there's obviously more to that with. Income should be at cost of living in that area and so on. But I think that there's easier ways to set price control just based on this is what a property costs to maintain and operate. Here's what a reasonable percentage of profit is above that for a investor or owner to manage that and have somebody in there. And that's what that price is for the region.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Jordan. That sounds like socialism, man.
I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind sitting down with Zoran Mondavi to know, to talk to him about his rent control policy.
Us too. When you get him on the phone, can you ask him if he wants to swing by the podcast? We'd love to have him on too.
You know what? When I meet him, I will absolutely say, yeah, you need to go on his podcast.
I think we're just a tad in the weeds, and this is not super concise on policy because there's some stuff that needs to get just sorted out, obviously, which is the case with all policy. It's not really a criticism. But I think what's important here in the message we're trying to get across is the fact that you are running to unseat. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name now.
Greg
Landsman.
Landsman. Yep, Greg Landsman. Because he is not representative of his constituents and of what we'd like to see out of Democrats as a party. And so I guess I would like to hear the concise elevator speech of what you are going to do to be an improvement for your constituents, most importantly, obviously, because that's who'd be voting for you, and for Congress as a whole, because you'd be a U.S. representative if you were to win. What's the elevator pitch of why you and why not him? I guess that way, I think because that's what we're here to sell, right? At the moment, is that.
So because each and every single one of you deserve to be heard, deserve to be seen, deserve to be fought for, deserve to be respected, and deserve to see yourselves within those that are representing you. You deserve that just for being a human being. And you deserve somebody in Congress, in leadership, who is there not for their own self-interest, not for their own political or financial interest, but who are there solely to serve you. Each and every single one of you, your kids, your community, and fight for each and every one of you and for generations to come, and fight for the generations to come. And that is what I am going to do, because I'm not a politician. I am just a human being, retired Navy, sarcastic, foul mouth, very opinionated, neurodivergent person who, with a sometimes way too much empathy, who truly believes in this serving people, and that the government is supposed to be for the people, by the people.
And Greg Landsman, you feel like
And
it is not achieving that for your constituent at the moment?
no, not at all. Not when you're doubling your net worth. Doubling your net worth since getting into Congress and making over $1 million in stock trades.
That's crazy, considering he's only been there for less than a year now.
Year and a half. I think he started in 2023.
Right?
So
yeah, he was the midterm. Yeah,
it's still crazy.
He has made. I think he's made close to 800-900 stock trades since he's been there, and right before the BBB got signed, he dumped a whole bunch of medical stock.
Of course he did. So I guess to kind of wrap this up, then there's some big obstacles to running for Congress. Obviously, there's big obstacles to running for just about anything, it feels like, in this country, but especially when you start talking federal races like this. And so what are some of the obstacles, aside from being time-consuming, difficult, and expensive? What are the obstacles that you're facing here currently?
Being a grassroots campaign that does not take a dime from corporations or super PACs, it's getting the funding that we need and the time we need, because we are people funded. We're a people powered campaign. And so, I tell people when they ask what the campaign needs, I always say the campaign needs right now 2 major things: funding and volunteers. And I believe that both can absolutely get done. The other obstacles are, working on getting my name out there. You take a look at, and I refer back to Zora Mondavi, because he's the race that I always keep in the back of my head to keep myself going. To just keep on pushing, keep myself going. He was nobody knew him until the last 3 weeks of the campaign. And so, getting my name out there, getting the message out there, because this isn't just a campaign. This is a movement. Because a campaign is for a season. We want the movement to continue. And that is really important to the campaign, is continuing the movement. And we have a lot of things that the campaign is doing to make sure that people get involved in community, get involved in organization and leadership, just outside of voting. But, so 2 biggest things are funding and volunteers right now, getting my name out there, because I know, I have no doubt that when people know that they have an option to not vote for Greg Landsman, they will not vote for him. And I know this because every time I talk to people and say I'm running against Greg Landsman, they're like, praise baby Jesus and baby Jesus heaven, thank God, welcome. So, and then, just, and then there's, I understand that I might be burning bridges with the DNC, but I don't care. I'm not here for the DNC. I'm not here to serve the DNC or their interest. I'm here to serve the people. This is about you. This is about your family. This is about your kids. This is about your community. This is about the future generations that will come after us, and no one and nothing else.
So, how can people help you? Oh, go ahead, Taylor. Did you have something?
No, I'm just agreeing that if we're, instead of, I wouldn't say it was even fighting the DNC as much as changing the DNC within, if that's the movement, then this is a place to start.
Mm-hmm.
When does the primary occur for you guys in Ohio? I know the election's not till next fall, or no, October 2026. But is it October or November? But November 3rd, 2026. Yeah.
The primary is May 5th, 2026.
Okay. Maybe.
So, and then of course, general election is in November.
Right.
And, people can help. So, the first thing that you can do, obviously, if you have the ability to do so, donating to the campaign through the website ferreiraforcongress.com or through our Act Blue page, which you can, I gave you guys the link, but you can also just go into Act Blue and, type in Lindsey Ferreira or Ferreira, and it will come up.
For the people on listening audio only.
Yes. So the website is ferreiraforcongress.com, and the website's up and it's running and everything. We're still doing a lot of work behind the scenes, so give us grace because I'm doing a lot of that coding on my own. So on top of everything else that I'm doing. But it's spelled F as in Foxtrot, ERREIRA.
All right.
And I say that slowly because it not to like try to purposely speak to people in crayon, but there's too many goddamn vowels. There's too many goddamn vowels, and people get it mixed up.
We were talking about this a little bit before the episode, and how nobody can pronounce your name, so you've always just gone by Rah Rah. That's what you went by in the Navy and everything like that. Yep. And so just Rah Rah has kind of become the brand. And have you just considered going Rah Rah with all of your campaign stuff? Yeah, pretty much just going by rah rah, even though it says for Congress, it's pretty much rah rah for Congress, Can you legally
go
do that? Like, can you just make that your website and your campaign stuff, just Lindsay rah rah for Congress? I think,
that would be awesome if I could. That would be, if it could be rah rah for Congress, that would be awesome. But I don't think I'm allowed to do that. The FEC is pretty, campaign laws are pretty strict, and I am terrified of the FEC. I don't even, some of the campaign expenses, like if I've got to get, if I got to make flyers or whatever, sometimes I'll just do it on my own dime, because I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I'll just do it on my own dime. I'm not going to mess with it.
Jeb was allowed to go by Jeb, and that's initials, and Rafael Cruz goes by Ted, so like I feel like you could just rah it up there.
Yeah, when it does, yeah. So when it does, not on the official like FEC forms, you can't. Mm-hmm. You gotta like be kind of, but but we were actually talking about that with my campaign strategist, and I were actually talking about that, just using rah because it's so much easier, and it's, kind of a brand name, anyway. And, you can come up with chants, and you can come up with, what have you. But, like if people call me rah, like I'm going to respond.
I meant just like campaign material, like the website. So like people didn't have to remember all the vowels was all I was getting at, but.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that, because it, it just, it's easier. Then you just got to get them to remember, like when they go, for those in the voting district, when you go and vote, like don't look for Rah Rah, look for Ferreira. So, but
Yeah, you could do rah rah in parentheses on your website, but not on the voting ballot. So
yeah. So, and then another big thing, outside of donations, and yet, we need donations, whatever you can give, whether it's 500 or 2,500. And I want to make it very, very clear to people, every dollar counts and every dollar matters. So I do not want you for a second to think that just because you only have the ability to donate $5 or $10, that doesn't mean anything. That means everything and then some, because I know that you work hard to get that. I know what you sacrifice in budget to be able to make that happen. So don't ever think for a second that it doesn't matter. I don't ever want to hear that come out of your mind or out of your mouth, because it absolutely does. And the second, if volunteers, we absolutely need volunteers, and it does not matter where you are. We have got positions for everyone, whether you're local, whether you're in. My social media strategist is in California. My campaign strategist is in Colorado. Now, she will be coming to Cincinnati soon, but she's in Colorado. So, every ability, every type. This campaign is very accessible for a reason, because I believe in accessibility, especially being disabled myself. So, we've got something for everyone, but, volunteers make the world go round. And then, telling people, just talking to people, word of mouth, sharing posts, saying, hey, hey, take a look at her website, take a look at her Act Blue page, take a look at her profile, because that's what really causes the spread of the wildfires, when people share it and it goes, just like being on social media and going viral. It goes from one person to the next person to the next person. So, so having that recognition, and nationwide especially, makes a huge difference. And we definitely want to do state nationwide recognition because of the move, because of the campaign and because of the movement specifically of making change in government, making government for the working people, for the everyday people.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in to listen to this, and obviously we're trying to support and platform as many people who are running for the change that we preach about here on a daily basis, and so I hope that this helps.
Oh, I can share my TikTok also and socials if you want. Is that? I'm so sorry
absolutely.
about that ADHD moment.
Your shameless self-promotion. Go for
it. So on TikTok and Substack, it is Ferreira for Congress. On Instagram and Blue Sky, it is Lindsay for Congress.
With Lindsay with an E.
Lindsey. Yes.
All right. And then obviously Chronically Rah Rah is your personal social media handle there.
Yeah, that's my personal social media. I don't talk about it a lot on the campaign,
so
but
check her out there on both of those. Thank you guys again. Please, if you can, help get the word out. If you can donate a little bit. Like I said, we've been mutuals for a long time. She, Lindsay, I can say on a personal level, is an incredible person, a very kind, giving person, and I have a lot of respect for people who throw their hat in the ring and go through all the effort and the pain and the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to run for office. I know people on a regular basis tell me I should run for office, and I'm like, fuck that. That seems like a nightmare. And it's a little selfish, I suppose, on my part, but I do have a ton of respect for everybody who is willing to go out there and give it a try, because it is really difficult, it is really hard, and it is it's something that there's a good chance will end up in disappointment. Like, if you don't win, you don't win. It's a lot of time and energy, and something that's always in the back of your mind, and it takes a person with a lot of fortitude to push forward and try to do that, especially for the betterment of their community when they're doing it the way that you're doing it. So thank you so much for doing it. I think that more people should be, and you are an inspiration for it. So please, everybody, go and give Lindsay here as much support as you can, because this is the kind of change that we need.
And Lindsay, I do have just two suggestions. One serious, one less serious. One is on Ballotpedia. It's ballotpedia.org is a great site that we've been using on the podcast for a while. That gives you like a questionnaire, and you can.
I'm actually filling out the
There you
question.
go.
I've been filling out the questionnaire the last couple of days. It's very long. It takes like an hour and a half
I'm
to
sure.
fill out.
I'm sure.
But yeah, it's I'm actually filling out my Ballotpedia questionnaire.
Awesome. Well, good. That's always good to hear. I think it's a really great resource for people. And I think it's now becoming like a pretty like Googleable type search when you're looking for somebody. It's one of the first few that pops up. So I think it's going to be much more mainstream in the upcoming future. And then secondly, I noticed on your website that you don't have a section dedicated solely to supporting Israel. And obviously, you know, Greg does. So I think you should really get on that and, you know, just show them what's what.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, we, like I said, we, oh yeah, no, yeah, no, I don't, fuck Netanyahu. He can, I know this is incredibly unprofessional, not not politician-like or demure, but he can eat my ass. So, like, that's just.
I'm sure that's one of the lightest sentiments that's been spoken of him today alone. So I think you're perfectly fine saying that.
All right.
I've said a lot worse. I've said a lot worse.
Indeed.
Well, thank you again, guys. Please go and show some support for Lindsay and all the progressive candidates running in elections all across the country. We've seen some amazing strides take place, obviously with Zoran winning in New York. We've got Omar Fateh, who was just given the endorsement by the DFL here in Minneapolis. So we're doing things. It's going to be the year of the progressives, I'm hoping, coming up next year in elections. And so please go support Lindsay, support everybody else. Thank you for supporting us, watching, listening. As always, if you want to support us more financially, we appreciate that. We've got subscriptions on YouTube, Patreon, Substack. You can buy merch at offthewagon.com for both the podcast and my personal stuff. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here, Lindsay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Go support Off the Wagon, you guys. I mean it. Go support him.
Yep, Lindsay, it was a pleasure. Have a great day, guys.